What's going on, golf addicts? David Barnett of the Tour Junkies. I got Pat Perry. Better late than never. We're here. We're ready to go for the WGC St Jude FedEx Invitational 2020, the first, big WGC event of this weird season. Pat coming
Is
off of
it?
vacation.
Is
It
it?
feels
I don't
like it. It feels
know.
like
I
a new
mean, I don't.
year.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue. I feel like we could have had one, and who knows? Maybe
If
we don't even remember it.
If you're watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us live. Sorry for the extremely long delay, Pat, having technical difficulties. I love what Marcus Miklovich said in the chat just a minute ago. Paging Patrick Harrison. Perry, please leave the bar and report to your terminal. Your family is waiting to board the aircraft.
He's pretty
We're
correct
all
there.
we're all boarded, ready to go. Pat's, off of vacation. He's a little rusty. Having those technical difficulties, which is going to happen. It's going to happen these days. We're going to have a great show tonight, though, Pat, because not only do we have a stacked field, we've got some hot picks. We're going to have some DFS picks, some sports betting picks. I got a few that I think are just money makers for the Barracuda. Barracuda, the Stableford alternate event. Those odds are up right now. We're going to talk through that just briefly. And I'm really excited about the chunk and run segment tonight. We have a good chunk and run segment that I think my answers are pretty. I was pretty happy with myself. I'm going to kiss my brain for my answers because I think they're pretty good.
Okay.
You have a good time. Before we really move on, big PSA tonight. We had another listener win massive money this past week. Matthew Moore, which if your last name is Moore, Moore, you need to overexpose yourself in the bankroll department this week, because Bryce Moore last week won 33 grand on like 400. And our boy Matthew Moore finished first and second in the $555 entry contest, racking up over 300,000 American dollars. Huge win for Matthew Moore.
I mean, that's just gigantic. I'm so happy. And, I can remember, and even though I was on vacation last week, I did jump in the chat room for a little bit and just kind of mix it up with everybody, because I like to do that, and it's fun. And he was very active, even asking me questions. I'm like, hey, I don't know why you're even asking me. I'm sitting here on vacation. I even already looked at this shit. But I mean, he's a good member of the Nut Hut, and it's just a great crew in there. So I was happy to see that happen for him, and for anybody that we get that listens to us, and even, I mean, it doesn't have to be $300,000.
No,
I mean, you have a positive, nice week, and you got some good info in the Nut Hut. I mean, I'm happy for that too.
Yeah, listen, I mean, obviously, it's just the big money is so shocking. Oh, Matthew is in the he's in the live YouTube chat room right now. So shout out, Matt. Yeah, I mean, obviously the big money is what's really interesting, but winning any amount is definitely a good thing, because it's hard to do. It is hard to do any amount, no matter what contest you enter in DFS. It is so tough. It's so tough to do. But I had a lot of fun yesterday. I watched a ton of golf this week. I don't normally get to watch a lot on the weekends. I usually get to watch a lot on Thursday and Friday, and then I'll catch the end on Sunday. Family duties, I'm playing golf myself or whatever. But I got to watch a ton this weekend. But yesterday was fun. I got in the Nut Hut chat room, and Matt was in there sweating it with Nut Hut members in the chat live while it was going on. So everybody's pulling for him and, updating him as soon as possible. He was sweating Charles Howell and Grillo on the last hole, and it was a lot of fun to sweat it with him. But that makes now, since the restart, 8 events, just 8 events, documented nearly $2 million in Nut Hut members winning on DraftKings in 8 weeks. Documented nearly $2 million. That is enormous. Now, that's incredible. So, like, the Nut Hut is not, I mean, I cannot overstate this. It is not just about getting information from me and Pat and Ben. like there are some really sharp guys and gals in that nut hut. And they're constantly in there communicating and mixing it up even when we're not in there. I think it's the best $10 a month or $90 a year you could possibly spend. And the community is growing. It's a lot of fun. It feels like a family a little bit, which I always thought was a little weird, a little cheesy, but it does kind of get that vibe. And they're like, we're all pulling for each other yesterday. Everybody's in there talking up Matt. I know he went to dinner last night with his wife and they celebrated. Hopefully they got pounded. It was just kind of fun, man. It was a lot of fun. And I feel like that community is super, super sharp. And you know what? I got to say, we had some good inside info last week on the Nut Hut as well. I gave you 3 names of players in the Nut Hut last week that we got directly from on the ground sources to say, play these 3 guys. And all 3, I would say, panned out. 2 of them especially panned out. And it was very good. We get that inside information a lot of times. Most weeks we get it, and we just had a great time. And I'm incredibly excited about the promise of the Nut Hut. So yeah, really, really exciting. But especially congratulations to Mr. Matthew Moore. Along those lines, though, sadly, I talked about the Bubble Boy contest a couple weeks ago. And we've had a number of submissions. It's like clockwork. I can give specific details about a contest, and half a dozen of you knuckleheads will send me things that do not apply. You just don't understand. Okay, I'm looking for people that play in contests of 1,000 entries.
Maybe you're not explaining it well.
Yeah, here we go.
Explaining it well.
Here's what qualifies you for the Bubble Boy contest: 1,000 entries into the contest or more on DraftKings or FanDuel. Right there, I can tell you, I got 3 or 4 DMs that did not have 1,000. They're like playing in their buddies league with 4 people, and they didn't make the. Like, give me a freaking break. You got to have the TJ avatar. Okay, that was something that a couple of you also missed. The TJ avatar has to be downloaded for your DraftKings or FanDuel avatar there. And you have to finish literally within 3 spots of the payout spot, like 3 spots, very tight, right there from getting paid. So you just barely missed it. I got a ton of people sending me Millie Maker screenshots where they're like, they're paying out to the top 33,419 spot, and they're in the 34,400 spots, like 1,000 spots off. Yes, I realize that was close. Your little dot is sliding close, but it's 160,000 entries.
It's still not like right on the edge.
I need to be like right here.
Yeah. So right on the edge.
Right on the edge. That would be the Bubble Boy. So we did get one that I feel like, now I got a couple that actually did qualify, but this one was the closest. We're going to be sending them out some free swag. John Mahoney at John J.A. Mahoney on Instagram sent this. His DK handle is mhoney19. He finished a half a point from cashing in the Millie Maker. Just a half a point, 1/2. A par would have done him fine. Not somebody not having him getting a bogey would have been okay. Half a point, and he would have got there. So, John, we will hook you up. Please be sure and rock those TJ avatars. That's actually something that you can do for free to help us. If you enjoy consuming our content and you want to say, hey, thanks, guys, we appreciate you doing your thing, then you can rock our avatar and hopefully do well. Something funny, Pat. Something funny, Pat.
Yeah, something's funny. So you said it's John Mahoney or Jason? Is it Jason? John. Okay, so I guess you had sent him an email about this, and so all of a sudden the email, the reply email pops up, and I see that, because I didn't know y'all. You're always doing these things behind the scenes that I don't even know about. So I see the reply, and I'm like, all right, because we get some bold people on these contests.
Yeah, we do.
So like you say, you finished 1,000 spots out of the bubble, so you're really not in the bubble. Well, all I see is a reply, and it's like, hey, yeah, my address is so-and-so, whatever else. And I'm like, and I'm thinking, this guy is so bold that he just went ahead and sent us his address to go ahead and send him stuff because he was on the bubble, without us even. So
he knew he won. I told him he won. I was DMing him on Instagram. I missed that part. I just thought he was bold enough to just send us his address and say, hey, y'all send me some stuff. I did have a scare, though, because when I DM'd him on Instagram, I was like, hey, man, you're the Bubble Boy. You win. I'm going to give you a shout out. I need you to email me, send your address. And he goes, oh, awesome. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. Thanks a bunch, mate. And I was like, damn it. He's from Australia. We got to ship stuff to Australia. Like, who says mate other than Aussies? And then the dude lives in Colorado. Are Colorado people saying, all right, mate?
Well, I mean, he could be an Aussie living in Colorado.
I guess that's true. I
mean, they could live in Colorado.
The more you know, I guess. As soon as I read that, I was like, God, I would pick the one guy in freaking Australia that I got to ship something to. I'm going to send him literally a $6 ball marker. It's going to cost us $60. You know what I mean? So we won't do it. Thankfully, he only lives in Colorado. I don't need any Australians winning this thing. Okay, like, we got to keep the lights on here at TJ HQ. We do love you. Yeah, man, I just want to get through that, dude. I mean, it's been an incredible run since the restart. Having a lot of fun. It's awesome. Get in there and check it out. Go to tourjunkies.com, subscribe to the Nut Hut, which is the 24/7 member chat. Pat, I got to tell you, man, I'm excited because last week, I was by myself. By the way, I freaking crushed it. Was the word on the street. I absolutely killed it. I mean, phone was blowing up. I had agents calling me. I had ESPN DM'd me wanting to pull me away from you. Of course, I said no. What else? Pat McAfee hit me up. He's like, dude, that was amazing. I heard all about it. You want to come work for McAfee? I was like, no, I don't want to leave Pat Perry. But anyway, I had a lot of fun. None of that happened. But my picks were pretty good. My fades were pretty good. Told a bunch of people to avoid all the landmines up top. It was absolute carnage at the top last week. At the 3M Open. A lot of fun, though, to see Michael Thompson win, who 0 people were on. So it didn't really hurt you that you didn't have him. But Michael Thompson seems like a genuinely fantastic human being, and good for him and his family. He's been grinding it for 7 years since his last PGA Tour victory. Very ho-hum game. But, man, he just hit a lot of greens, a lot of fairways, a lot of greens, did his thing.
Yeah. And, a lot of fun. You typically think of a guy like him as just sort of a steady Eddie type player, hits fairways, hits greens, but he's not a big time scorer or anything. But, he was scoring out there. I mean, he was doing, everything he needed to do. So, yeah. Props to him. It was great all week. I mean, never made hardly any bogeys at all. Like, if you're like for me, I had some bets that were pretty live on Sunday. What?
Golly. Like, all of a sudden, my brain's hurting right here on this side. I swear, man, we're all going to have cancer after with this Bluetooth stuff. Like, literally, my brain just started hurting right here. Maybe it was your voice. Anyway, continue.
I don't even remember what I was talking about. But
funny YouTube comment. Marcus Griffin said Jay Mahoney's going to get a triple XL Captain America shirt that we still have like 811 of. Yeah, anyway, he's a good dude. It was a good time. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. I did, however, Pat, discover an amazing new podcast juice that a lot of people are asking me about. And I got to be honest, I have a new Tito's substitute. I'm saying goodbye to Tito's, and I'm saying hello to Wild Leap handcrafted vodka. This stuff is delicious. I picked it up in the store. It's cheaper than Tito's. Gluten-free, as apparently all vodka is. But, they do put it on the label to let you know. 0 calories, 0 carbs, only 96 sugars. Pat, that's good for you. See that?
Yeah, I like that.
And they're out of LaGrange, Georgia. They do beer. They do vodka. They do they're about to come out with these. I found out on their Instagram. They're about to come out with these vodka mixers, kind of like High Noons. So I think I'm feeling a change in the tides of podcast juice. This stuff is delicious.
Well, I mean, I haven't gotten to try it yet, but I look forward to it. And I'm got just Tito's tonight for my podcast juice. So, is that so pre-COVID?
It's 2019, man. I mean, that's so 2019. What do you mean? Yeah, it says, oh no, 0. Sorry, not 0 calories, 96 calories, 0 sugar, 0 carbs. My bad, I misread that. All right, that's enough of that. Pat, are you? Did you remember that every week you cover the course breakdown? Are you ready to talk about TPC Southwind, or did you?
Yeah, I feel like I did. I did remember that, and I'm ready to go this week. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's a no cut event, so it is a little bit different, and I'll probably scale back a little bit than I typically do as far as what I'm playing. But we got a fantastic field this week. So, yeah, I love TPC Southwind. It is a great course in Memphis, Tennessee. It is a par 70 playing right around, 7,200 yards and above. It is you got Bermuda greens here. So we're back on Bermuda after getting bent / POA, whatever, like having to decide what we are.
Yeah.
We're on just pure Bermuda greens this week. There are 78 players in the field, and as I mentioned, it is a no-cut event. This course plays really tough. I mean, you look over the years, I mean, it's literally in the top 15 to 20 toughest courses on tour every single year. There is a ton of water on this course. As a matter of fact, this course gobbles up the most water balls of any course all year long. So that is something that you definitely want to look at. You want to avoid those guys that, might spray it off the tee a little bit or whatever, but and avoid those big numbers. You just can't F up your approach shots on this course. And you pretty much got to keep it in the fairway. I mean, we talk about this every week when you look at driving accuracy versus distance and whatever. I like accuracy this week. I do like your accurate guys, your guys that are not going to get into trouble off the tee. There's not a whole lot of rough, so if you do miss the fairway, I don't think it's going to be all that penal. But I still think that it's a course where you do need to be hitting fairways and giving yourself a good shot at, hitting and being aggressive into these greens. I think we see aggressive players do well here. But again, they have to hit these fairways. The 2 par 5s are relatively easy. I mean, they're 550 and 530. So you're going to see some scoring on those par 5s. When you step up on the par 5s, you better be hoping for a birdie, because that's what you need to get. If you don't, you are losing strokes to the field for sure. You got 8 par 4s here that play between 450 and 500 yards. So I looked at that as a stat as far as par 4 scoring at that distance. I mean, those are some pretty long, beefy par 4s at that distance. So I think you want to look at guys that tend to score well and gain strokes on those par 4s. Other than that, I mentioned accuracy is something I am looking at. Ball striking for sure. I did look at course history, as I always do. Opportunities gained, I think, is a good stat to look at, which is one of those proprietary fantasy national stats that just measures your opportunities to score and score and have birdies. So I like that as well. Looking at past champions, we had our boy Brooks Koepka, who he's like my Rory now. Like, I can't not play him, and he screws me every week. He won last year. He had DJ in 2018. He also won in 2012 here. So let's go back to this point. This has only been a WGC event. I think this is the second year it's been a WGC event. So they've played this course like 30 something years in a row, but it was just the FedEx St. Jude. We didn't have the same type of field as we have now. It was, I think, right before the PGA. I could be wrong on that, but, or either the U.S. Open. Maybe it's the U.S. Open.
Well, it's moved when they switched to major.
But anyway, we do have a ton of course history, but it's just not always as a WGC event. You had Berger win this thing back-to-back in 2017 and 16. And DB's boy, Selena's daddy, Fabian Gomez, in 2015 won this event. And you talk about a guy who's just accurate off the tee. That is certainly one right there. But so there you go. That is the quick course breakdown. Any extra thoughts that you may have, David?
Hey, yeah. I mean, if we're talking DFS, what matters more than everything Pat said, if you're playing tournaments in DFS, is ownership. It is an ownership week, 78 players, 55, he mentioned 78 players, no cut. We all know what that means, right? Ton of volatility, ton of changes. You need guys who score. That's number one. You got to have guys who can take advantage of those 2 par 5s Pat mentioned, make those birdies. I think form matters a little more when you're picking players like that. I'm a little more against playing a guy just because he's low owned if we still haven't seen at least some semblance of form over the last couple of weeks, because I want him going in there confident. I want him going in there being able to attack when they need to on the holes they need to and score, because this is for DFS. you got to score. You got to make the birdies. You got to make the eagles to come out on top here. And finding ownership leverage is numero uno. You mentioned the greens, Bermuda. They are very small. They're smallish and they're a little slopey, which is why you talked about how it can be penal when you don't hit the greens, because you're going to have to chip out of this Bermuda, which is not always fun, onto small, slopey greens. So that's obviously something to look at. I think this course tends to favor the faders a little bit. You got Brooks, who plays a fade, DJ, who plays a fade, Berger, one back-to-back, who plays a fade. I don't know about Gomez, Crane, and English, but they probably play fades, okay? So I think a little bit of a fade bias helps. A lot's going to depend on, I do think you're right about accuracy. I think that matters more than anything in terms of off the tee stuff. Obviously, your bombers like DJ and Brooks can club down. That's for sure an advantage. The defense here is being able, if it gets a little windy potentially, which could happen. I see a little bit of wind predicted already right now. We won't get a whole lot into the weather yet, but it also looks to get some rain this week, which is going to soften it up a bit. I don't love that. I would prefer this to play firm and fast, but we'll see how it goes. They haven't had a whole lot of rain recently, so I think currently the course is still pretty firm. But come Wednesday night in the Nut Hut chat, we can definitely report back and tell you, what our caddy friends think of the course conditions, whether it's playing that firm or fast, or if they think it's playing soft. So.
I could see and this is just something I've just popped in my head. But if you're spending money this week and you're a gambler, so if you're betting on this week and you're also playing DFS, I would actually feel like I would feel more comfortable putting more money on the table betting than I would DFS. I like this week for a bet from a betting standpoint.
Same.
But I'm not as big of a fan from a DFS, and it's just always that way when you have a no cut event, because your lineup just has to be so, to win one of these big tournaments this week. It always has to be just so perfect, because from a leverage standpoint, from whatever else, it's just so much harder. And I do think you can take more risk in DFS because of that reason. But I do think if I were putting my money up, I'm more excited about the bets that I'm going to place versus my DFS lineups. And that's just me.
And I feel like I say this at most of the WGCs, and I seriously don't think it's ever bit me. But in these fields that are extremely strong, there's always guys that play predominantly on the European Tour that get in. Don't fall in love with those guys. They're going to be low owned, and there's a couple that maybe have some upside, but man, most of the time it just does not work out. This is a strong field on a somewhat difficult golf course. It's not a major championship golf course, but it's somewhat more difficult than what we've been seeing in the Birdie Fest. Most of the time it just doesn't work out. So, if you get enticed by a 1% owned, oh my God, I'm going to be way smarter than everybody else, European Tour, Asian Tour predominantly playing guy, don't get too caught up in that and just pivot to the guy who's 3% or 4% owned in tournaments that plays on the PGA Tour regularly. That's not going to kill you. So I do think from a strategy standpoint, that's something to think about for DFS. All right, let's get into the players here. We're going to look at DraftKings pricing, 9K and above, 3 tournament plays, a cash play, and a fade. Pat, I will start with my fade. I'm just going to go a little off the reservation here. I am going to continue, despite the $9,300 price tag, to fade Dustin Johnson. 78 was his first round score at the 3M Open. He withdrew due to injury. Hot take, he's not injured. And 2 rounds of 80 at the Memorial before that. And before that, a win, which is very weird. But even with the win since the restart, he is 37th in approach and 37th in greens and regulation in this field. And he's 47th in bogey avoidance in this field. Out of 78. Not great for Dustin Johnson at $9,300. Yes, it's an attractive name at a price that we're not used to seeing him at. I don't think DJ's hurt. He's definitely got to figure some stuff out. but the iron play, the tee to green game is not there. And despite being a winner here twice, I will gladly continue fading him. I'm not going to buy it.
Crazy is it that he literally had to like birdie 2 of his last 3 holes to not shoot 3 straight
80
rounds.
again. Yeah. Okay. Now,
who just won? He just won. Like,
yeah, it's so crazy. All right. Now for the top, I'm not going to get super committed here. There are a ton of incredibly great names to pick here, right? And I'm going to name some of my favorites. And I think at the end of the week, or come Wednesday in terms of DFS, it's going to just come down to who are the 3 that I think I can get the most ownership leverage of. I'm going to start with Justin Thomas. Love where his iron play is right now. The form is incredible. He's checking all the boxes, and definitely the iron play is what really attracts me the most to JT. Webb, who has a good record at this golf course when you look at not just finishing runner-up last year at the WGC, but also previous years at St. Jude. He's played very well. Loves Bermuda. I love Webb. I'm getting in on Xander. I love where his iron play is as well. He's number 1 in his field in greens and regulation since the restart. Scores a lot of birdies. I do like that. He doesn't putt as well on Bermuda, but I like the birdie potential for Xander. I like Berger a lot here, bouncing back off a miscut last time we saw him at the Memorial. He loves this golf course. He's on record of loving this golf course, which anybody who wins twice is going to love a golf course. But it fits his eye. Tee to green, I think it fits his eye. He's very familiar with the champion Bermuda grass that you get on these green surfaces. It's what he grew up playing on. So I love Berger. And I think it's really tough to avoid when you talk about ball striking, hitting it in the fairway and not missing greens. Really tough to avoid Victor Hovland, who is doing that almost better than anyone else, actually better than anyone else, tee to green, since the restart at a mere 9,400. And then finally, I'm going to keep riding the train, and it's paid off for me so far. The Matthew Fitzpatrick train, I am all aboard. He's played well here last year, 3rd at the Memorial, a player who doesn't get himself in a lot of trouble. He ranks 5th in bogey avoidance. And actually scores a little bit too. 17th in birdies or better gained since the restart out of this field. Tee to green guy, very steady and can score. So those are just some names I like. I know I didn't name 3, but I think it's going to be kind of a land on the 3 lowest owned, or maybe pick the one that I really love despite ownership and get the 2 others for leverage. But I do feel like in terms of cash, if I were going to play cash, which I wouldn't this week, I would play Webb. I think that's as good a bet as any. So there you go.
All right. Well, so definitely some agreement here. For me, I'll start with cash. I actually have Hovland in cash. I mean, I just think it's a good price at 9,400, and he's just been incredible and checking all the boxes and whatever. But I was kind of flopping because I'm not going to play any cash, and I just whatever. I'm with you though on Xander. He was one of my GPP plays this week. I like him a ton. I like Matthew Fitzpatrick. He didn't necessarily fit my 3 that I landed on, but I do like him as well. And I think he's a good bet this week also. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I do think he's a pretty decent bet, depending on what price you're getting him on a sports book. But at the top there, I mean, I gotta say, and I'm sure there's going to be some ownership, but I'll plant my flag and go play some Rory. I mean, the guy's just absolutely been fantastic on this course. He hasn't finished worse than 6th in the last 3 straight years of playing this course. So obviously plays here pretty well. We know he checks all the boxes when you look at, par 4 scoring 450 to 500 yards, opportunities gained, bogey avoidance, ball striking, all of that kind of stuff. Even his, driving accuracy is pretty good. He's top 40 in the field. So I guess he's in the top half. So that's not, out of 78. That's not that great. But anyway, I do like some Rory at 11-2, and I think I will play him. I'll be interested to see where his ownership comes in. I do think it's going to be high. A guy that you've kind of not liked that much this year, but old Terrell Hatton at 90.
I thought you were going to say that.
700. I'm a fan of his. Look, you talked about form early on, and this is a guy that if you want form, he's got it. I mean, he has been now.
Yeah, he does.
we have not seen him since the Rocket Mortgage. He didn't play over at the Memorial. He didn't go in the bubble there for 2 weeks, and he didn't play last week. But he's third at the Heritage. He was fourth at the Rocket Mortgage. I mean, the guy's just been playing incredibly. He's won this year. So I think he is a great play at 9,700. And I think he's still going to be the forgotten man of this group because there's so many good guys here. I mean, if you look at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's very hard to peg. I mean, you got JT right there around him, Cantlay, Webb, Xander. I just feel like Hatton might end up being a little bit of the forgotten person and hopefully get a little bit lower ownership on him. And I like him here. So I think this could be a good spot for him. He has played this course. He does have experience. Now, his best finish was T13 in 2017 in a much larger field event, which was, that was back before it was a WGC event. Last year, he finished 27th. Wait, sorry. Looking at the wrong. Yeah. No, last year he finished T43. But anyway, I do like some Hatton this week. I think he is a good tournament play. My fade's going to be Brooks. If you watch Brooks, now, here's the thing with him. He could easily just, because it's the type of field it is, he always shows up in majors, these WGC events, that kind of stuff. Like, he could just turn it around. But I watched him a lot last week because I had him, and I had him in a lot of good lineups, and he screwed me. And I'm not just going by this because of recency bias, and I think that just because he screwed me last week, but he was like, I should stand up. Like doing this thing with his leg and his knee and moving all around and like stretching it out and just looked all out of sorts and not like excited about anything with his game. Like he just didn't even look like he was enjoying being out there. And something's just off with Brooks. Now, maybe a light clicks and this week is different. But I can't do it. I am not gonna play him. But somebody in the Nut Hut is going to get to me on Wednesday night. And I'm going to end up putting him in the lineup. But I don't know. I'm not feeling Brooks in this game right now. I can't. Like, I feel like I could play DJ over Brooks, even though DJ worse.
I honestly feel like DJ and Brooks are the only two here that are fadeable. Like that I could not be talked into. You could talk me into literally any other play. I mean, even Hatton. I like Hatton. Like, any other name 9K and above other than DJ and Brooks, I will say, yeah, I like that. If that's what you wanted, yeah, like you make your call. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you with Brooks. I mean, he did hit it better. He did hit the ball better this past week. He lost 5 shots putting, which is crazy. He normally never does that.
Awful.
He is arriving to a course where it's Bermuda, which is his best putting surface by a long shot. This is also something that we learned about Brooks years ago when we interviewed him. And he said this after that. He doesn't like playing more than 3 events in a row. That's when he was healthy. He said that. Mm-hmm. This is his 4th event in a row. He's looking for something. He would not be playing here if he wasn't. He would be taking it off, resting for the PGA.
And he's a defending champion, so I almost feel like
defending champ. Yeah, but you know what? Who doesn't care about doing that? Like Brooks. Like if any defending champ,
he is the one that would be like, he would just be like, screw it, I'm not playing.
Yeah, if any defending champ wants to go, you know what, guys? I don't feel it. I'm not there. I'm not meant. I'm not coming. Like, it would be Brooks. So I don't even care about that. I just know he doesn't like playing more than 3 events in a row, and that is well documented. And this is his 4th event in a row, and he knows now that playing the PGA is going to be his 5th event in a row, and then he's going to have to play the FedEx playoffs. Well, I'm sure he'll skip the Wyndham.
That's another thing is he's so far out right now.
Yeah, he's out of it.
Like,
yeah,
so like,
which is motivating.
That's the part that's going to drag me in because he's so motivated. Like he might not even make the playoffs. Because he's got to play well this week. So I don't know. Right. But I didn't like what I saw with him coming down the stretch on Friday trying to make the cut.
I'm with you. Let's move on to the AK range real quick here. I'm going to start again with my fade. This gentleman has played 16 rounds in his career at TPC Southwind and has lost nearly a half a stroke total, strokes gained, which doesn't sound like a lot. But it is in the bottom of people who've played here before that are in this event. Gary Woodland is my fade. Finished T55 here in 2019. His worst putting surface by far, Bermuda, which Gary's frustrating on his best putting surface to watch putt, and you get him on his worst putting surface, and he is going to really drive you nuts. Here's what really kind of was crazy to me. He's played in 5 events since the restart. In those 5 events, he has lost 9.6 strokes off the tee. 9.6 off the tee lost in the 5 events since the restart. That is a little concerning at a course that, to me, highly values accuracy. Now, Gary can hit his little stinger, but he's done that on these other courses he's played, and it's not working for him. And he's also typically, when you look long-term, a pretty poor scrambler, usually bottom of the rung. Did he scramble his balls off to win the U.S. Open at Pebble? Yes, he did. Yes, sir, he did. He sold his soul to the devil the way he scrambled that week. It was absurdly out of character for him. So I think Gary is the one the fade in this range that to me makes the most sense at the $8,600 price tag. Now, my favorite play here is definitely Abraham Answer, who will be, I would assume, pretty chalky, but I've played him chalky or not since the restart, and it's been pretty good. You get him at $8,400. He is playing lights out right now. I'm all in on Abraham Answer. In terms of, and I would play him in cash, but he's also my favorite GPP play. I don't even know why we're talking about cash this week. I hate cash plays in a no-cut event. You lose a lot of edge. You might as well take that lineup and put it in a tournament. So F cash. In fact, I'm not even talking about it for the rest of the night. If you're going to play DFS, play tournaments. So Answer is my boy for sure. From a box checking perspective, Billy Horschel checks a lot of boxes at 8,500, comes in pretty good form over his last 2 events, putts best on Bermuda. He's a Florida guy. He's very familiar with Champion Bermuda. I like Billy Ho. Now, there are 2 guys who I think are interesting, 2 more guys, and maybe you're going to talk about them. Patrick Reed, who I think is going to be a little more popular than we think, because I think people are going to want to play Patrick Reed. Good scrambler, good. I think decent court history here. Checks the box and birdies are better. So I think Reed's going to be an interesting play at 8,800. He definitely is attractive to me. But for the first time in a long time, you know who caught my eye? Sergio Garcia at $8,000. Since the restart is absolutely killing it from a tee to green. Birdies are better, bogey avoidance, like checks literally every single box does Sergio. So I'm a little interested to get Sergio. I don't have to worry. I don't have to sweat the cut, just make me some birdies, Spanish boy. And let's do this. So I like a guy in good form coming in, which he sure is. And so I think he's going to be one that I'll probably lean to come Wednesday, unless somebody else talks him up and he becomes chalky.
I like the Sergio play, actually. I think if you're going to play him anytime this year, this is a good week to do it with the no-cut event. And, he can score. So is that it for you in that range?
Yeah.
Are we done? Okay. So I'll start.
I started. You go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, I'll start me starting me.
Okay, you start you. You start you, and I'll start me.
Let me start me. We wrote down that we were going to do a cash play, so I have Answer right there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Answer is just I wrote down whatever Answer because it's just he's just a good play this week, and it's pretty solid. But let's get into the picks that you're probably going to disagree with some. My fade, by the way, I'll agree, was Woodland. I was totally with you there. So
okay,
good. Get that out of the way. I'm playing Fleetwood this week outside of this miscut that we saw last week. I
don't hate it.
We didn't get to hear from me a whole lot on the podcast because I wasn't on it last week. But if I was, you would have heard that I did like Fleetwood last week, and I was wrong.
Dude, hold on. You know what I cracked up at laughing the other day that I remembered? not last week because you just said it. We didn't hear from you a lot because you weren't on the podcast. But the week before, when I went through a range and you said, you said, okay, well, we don't have any of we have zero of the same players, except for one.
Except for one.
It's kind of like what you just said there. Like, well, you didn't hear. I didn't get to say a whole lot last week. You didn't hear a lot from me because I wasn't freaking here.
But I was in the chat room, and I will say, like, when I'm wrong,
okay.
when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. It's like the what was that? The line from oh god, that's going to.
If it's Seinfeld, I don't know. Just move on.
No, it's not Seinfeld. It's from Dirty Dancing. Anyway,
wow, Dirty Dancing reference. Jeez.
Yeah, when I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong.
Are you old enough to have watched Dirty Dancing with like your high school girlfriend on the couch while you tried to slip your hand down her?
No, I think that movie was like 87 or 88, which would have put me like 10 or 11, somewhere in that range.
That's old enough. No, just kidding.
I guess that's old enough. Maybe.
Nowadays, I feel like it is.
Yeah, that kind of alludes to the talk to what we're going to talk about in the Chunk and Run. Anyway,
it does.
What were we talking about?
Not messing with your prepubescent girlfriend. We're not talking about that in the Chunk and Run level.
But what? So,
oh crap! It's getting off the rails.
Anyway, I was a fan of Fleetwood last week, even though y'all were lucky enough not to hear that on the podcast. But I'm back on him this week. I'm okay with the miscut, whatever. It was his first tournament since quarantine and whatever else. He didn't hit the ball terrible, I didn't think, but he did putt pretty bad. He just didn't putt all that well. It's kind of like Paul Casey. If you had Paul Casey, that guy just couldn't buy a freaking birdie and could not make a putt. But I'm back on Fleetwood, and I'm hoping he has a little bit lower ownership because of the whole miscut and things like that. I still think this is a good course for him. You look at last year, his first time. His first time in a WGC event here. He finished T4th, but he was T14th the year before that, and then T28 before that. So he's played this course extremely well. He's a guy that's just a great ball striker, checks a box on approach, also opportunities gained, and in that par 4 scoring from 450 to 500 yards that I talked about. Now we're going back to earlier in the year. If you're looking at some of his stats, because we haven't seen him all that much, but I still like Fleetwood again this week at 8,700, and I'm hoping we get definitely some lower ownership than we saw last week. And here's the guy that I just think is a great WGC no-cut event player who we have seen play well lately, and that is Mr. Jason Day at 8,200. I am a fan of him. Okay. I love that price. Let's just look at it. I mean, his last two events.
My only thing on Day, because you're right, you're going to spit out all the stats. I agree. My only thing on Day was the last event we saw him play at the Memorial. He was hurting. His back was not good.
Yeah, but
anyone who bends over and picks up their ball out of the hole on the PGA Tour, not the Champions Tour.
I saw that.
And resembles like Bob Barker if his dentures fell out of his mouth on the floor.
I'm going to get up for the second time in a row in this podcast. He did this whole.
Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself.
He did this whole he did this thing where he would lean down like this. Like he did this whole crazy.
He was hurt. I don't like it.
But I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know if it's
remember
WGCs.
Remember, WGCs are automatic paychecks. If he hits it, we learned this from Daniel Berger a few years ago. If he puts his ball in the air on number 1 and withdraws, he's guaranteed $40,000 to show up.
I don't care. I think he's worth the risk.
I think he's a big risk. Yeah.
He's a huge risk, but he's going to be low owned. I mean, and so why not play him? He's still in good form.
He will be low.
So maybe maybe he's injured, but he's still he's injured last, playing the freaking Memorial and on a very hard golf course, and he still plays pretty well. As far as I know, TPC Southwind also isn't like that hilly of a course that's going to hurt his back or do whatever. So, I mean, I think that I think Dave's
talking about him like he's freaking Rocco Mediate. All right, are you done?
Yeah.
All right, 7K range. Let's hit through it real quick. I'm going to start with my fade once again. It's going to be Henrik Stenson. This is the theme for me, and it has paid off. First event showing up after the restart. I'm fading big names that draw a lot of attention, and I will fade Henrik Stenson for the first event. Now, just like Tommy last week, everybody was like, oh, he showed a 64 at Shinnecock while he was quarantined. Well, yeah, but he didn't look great. Okay. Now I realize he missed the cut by like a shot or two, but that's not what you want out of a Tommy Fleetwood. Henrik Stenson's down here is a lot cheaper, which I get. You're not having to worry about a missed cut, which is also nice. But then when you look at it, he finished T27 here last year. That's not terrible. Top third of the field. Okay. Here's what's really crazy. Since February of 2019, which was the first event he played, I think, in that year, he has only gained strokes off the tee in 3 out of 14 measured PGA Tour strokes gained measured events since February of 2019. In only 3 events has he gained strokes off the tee since February of 2019. Because everybody's like, oh, it's a shorter course, or you got to be in the fairway, no worries, he'll smoke that 3-wood. Well, this is not Henrik Stenson that won the U.S. Open a few years ago, or the Open Championship a few years ago. Apparently, the 3-wood or whatever, it ain't working like it used to, okay? Because he ain't hitting fairways and he ain't gaining a lot of strokes off the tee like he used to. So don't misremember old Henrik for current Henrik. It's not been great. First event off the quarantine, I'm not doing it. In terms of GPP plays, I like Mark Leishman, who's played really well here before. Interesting, good player in tough conditions. If the wind does pick up here and the court, you play in rain or something like that, I think Leishman's a good play there at 7,700. Sneaky leverage play here. Kevin Na. I like Kevin Na. When you look at the restart,
I keep looking at him, and I'm like,
okay,
nope.
I kind of like him though. Now I rarely play a chalky Kevin Na, but I do like Kevin Na here. Since the restart, 12th in strokes gained approach, 16th in greens in regulation, 15th in birdies or better gained, with a 5th at the Travelers, a 9th at the Memorial. I like Kevin Na at this event. I think this is a course that suits him anyway. If you just think about the profile of somebody who play well here, I think that suits him. Also, I'm gonna go with Joaquin Niemann at 7,400. I'm gonna hop on the Joaquin train. Love the ball striking, the iron play here. I'll work with that, and then I'm gonna throw out one more, and that's Kisner at 7,000. If I don't have to worry about him making a cut, if I can get a Kisner who loves to show up at big events like this too, who's not afraid of these big events, who's not afraid to go out there and say, I got to make some birdies. I'm going to go make some birdies. Now, he hasn't done that very well since the restart, but I think you're going to get him, like sub 5% at 7,000. I get a nice little price savings. I'll go Kiz. That's it for me in the sevens.
Wow. Okay. We got nobody here we have nothing that is in agreement here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go with, I faded Joaquin Niemann. I don't like him this week. He's not checking the box and putting on Bermuda. It's his first time playing this course. Doesn't check the box for me in driving accuracy or in that par 4 scoring from 450 to 500 yards. So I'm actually out on Niemann, and I wonder where his ownership's going to be. It may be pretty high. I don't know, but I'm out on Niemann. Not a big fan. So I'm against you there. I'll start with at the top for me. I'm on Matthew Wolff this week at 7,900. I like him. I mean, the guy's an aggressive player. He's been playing, and if you're going to play a guy that's an aggressive guy like he is, this is the week to do it with a no-cut event and whatever else. And a lot of people, he was one, again, that I didn't get to talk about on the podcast that I think a lot of people didn't like last week that I did like. And I think I mentioned it in the chat room. I was on some Wolff last week, despite the fact that he had won the year before and whatever else. I think at 7,900 is a pretty good price for him. We know he is a scorer. I mean, the guy is just as aggressive as they come. So I like Wolff at 7,900, and we'll play him all day long. Another guy that's been kind of hit or miss, Scotty Scheffler at 7,300. I think he's another aggressive player with a no-cut event that we don't have to worry about him just having a bad day or whatever. I think Scheffler is a good play as well. Checks a box in opportunities gained. Also, he's actually a pretty accurate driver of the golf ball and a good ball striker. So I'm all in on Scotty Scheffler at 7,300. And then another guy that missed the cut last week and hasn't played that great, but has played really well on this course. And that is Bubba Watson at 7,100. I think he is a great leverage play, will be super low owned. He has gained 28 strokes on the field over the last 5 years playing this event, with a top 10 last year. He finished second back in 2015, 2 top 15s in a row in 16 and 17. So I like some Bubba Watson at 7,100. And he's shown some flashes of playing pretty well this year. I mean, just at certain times. So I do like some Bubba there. I don't have a cash play, I guess, but I do.
Cares?
I mean, Hadwin's another guy, another name that I wrote down.
Yeah, okay.
I think Hadwin's good. So,
all right, 6K. I'll move quickly. I like Streelman. I like Palmer. I like Byung-Hun An in a no-cut event. Thank God. Seabez, Bezenhooty Hoot is interesting. There's a few. There's a number of names down here I like. So I think we'll just see how it works out. Come Wednesday night, we'll figure that out. Any other names down here that kind of?
I'll give you two actually, and they're okay. I'll give you two, and they're both from overseas, but they're not just. This isn't their first rodeo right now, and that is Matt Wallace at 6,700. Finished T4 at the Memorial, T39 at the Workday. Playing really well. And then Tom Lewis. I'm going to give you that guy down really cheap at 6,200. Finished T12 at the Rocket Mortgage and 32nd last week. I think Tom Lewis, 6,200, that's a good price for him. So if you're wanting just a cheap, super low owned, like 1% owned guy, I would put in some Tom Lewis in your lineups. I like him.
Wow. Man, I didn't even realize he played last week. That's a dark horse for sure. Okay. Let's talk some sports betting, because I definitely I'm getting excited about the sports bet stuff. First of all, there's a few matchups that I do think were interesting as it pertains to DraftKings. Tyrrell Hatton, I noticed a very slight favorite on DK Sportsbook over Matthew Fitzpatrick, but $700 more expensive. I kind of feel like Fitzpatrick is Hatton light, like cheap Hatton. Not as good form, but still solid form. But I think he's got the same skill set. But $700 cheaper for Fitzpatrick over on DFS. You mentioned Jason Day. He's actually a pretty sizable favorite over Ricky Fowler, but $100 less than Ricky. So that would justify your value there for Mr. Jason Day. And then my boy Kevin Na is $100 less than Matt Kuchar. I don't know why I said Matthew Kuchar. But he is also a favorite, which I also thought was interesting. All right, DK Sportsbook. Let's talk outright picks. I'm not going to start before Patrick Reed at 35-1. You know me. I'm always going to skip the favorites.
Yeah, I will. I have a few.
I know you will. That's why I gladly skipped it. I'll start at Pat Reed at 35-1. I love me some Abraham Answer at 45-1 on DK Sportsbook. Also like your Matt Wolf call as an outright bet at 90-1, riding high, a lot of confidence, a lot of form, made a lot of birdies coming in over the weekend at the 3M. So I like that. Corey Connors at 125-1 is hard for me to pass up on, considering his iron play. And this is a golf course that really rewards iron play. 125-1 is a big number. Okay. Now here's some monster numbers, but I mean, in a field of 78 players where really you could eliminate it down to like 65, you could pretty much take it down to like 65 that really could win. I mean, it's volatile, but with 65 of those players, Phil Mickelson's 150-1, and we've seen him have some pretty good rounds.
I did not expect that coming.
We've seen him have some pretty good rounds since the restart, have we not? I mean, I think Phil's had. I think he was almost a first-round leader a couple weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I just 150-1 for an experienced guy like Phil, who could, if he just gets hot for a week, I mean, that's a big number. You mentioned Matt Wallace. I looked at him at 150-1. Ryan Palmer stands out to me at 175-1, who almost sealed the deal just a couple of weeks ago. in a full field event. So those are some outrights that have kind of caught my eye so far. What about you?
Well, I'll start with the shorter odds because you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I'll start with Xander at 20-1. I think that's a really good number for him.
If I were going to go short, I like that.
I like Matthew Fitzpatrick at 28-1 and Hovland at 31-1. I think those are good numbers for those three guys that are, have been playing really well, especially Hovland. I think that 31-1, by the way, is just a weird number. Just like make it 32 or 30.
I like the Hovland number too.
From the long standpoint, or middle, I guess, I feel like because I just don't want to play him in DFS, that this is sort of like the FOMO, the fear of missing out, that I need to play Paul Casey at 70-1. Like I just there's this need to do Paul Casey at 70-1.
I don't think a win is coming for Paul this week.
I know, but it could happen, and then everybody you're gonna hate yourself. So like if you just throw a little bone on him, and then
you want to put your bone on Paul Casey?
Yeah. And then Sung J M at 90-1. I mean, we're getting a guy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean,
come on, man.
Look, it's Sung J.
He
can win a tournament. We've seen that, and we haven't seen him play great lately, but who knows? No cut event.
We haven't even seen him play kind of okay lately. It's not that we haven't seen him play great. I mean, it's a name.
That's just a number that I just feel like is a little bit off of him. All right, so going a litof bit longer, I'd like Danny Willett at 125-1. I think that's a pretty good number. We've seen him play really well lately. Kind of got in the mix for a little bit at the Memorial, but then sort of fell off a little bit. And then Max Homa coming off a good week last week at 150-1. I think that's a pretty good number for him. He's kind of a streaky type player that, when he's playing well, he's really
got to make some putts, man. He's got to make some putts.
But at 150-1, I like that as well. I don't know. There are some decent looking longer shot numbers here, but I'm surprised you didn't throw out your our boy Joel.
I want to wait and see come Wednesday on Joel. We'll give you an update on Joel. I did look at him at 225-1, which is a big number.
Big number.
All right. Well, I want to throw out a couple names for top 10 bets. Cam Smith at 18-1. Not been playing well, but Cam Smith has been a contender at big events throughout his career. He's one of the best scramblers in the world. He just hadn't really been playing well whatsoever lately. I don't know what's wrong with him, but 18-1 for a top 10, I'll do it. I'm not going to play a top 10 at like 6-1. I just don't do that. But let me tell you the guy I like the most, and I'm going to put him down for a top 10 and a top 20. And his form recently is not outstanding, but we have seen him pop. He tends to miss the cut, or but he also has tremendous top 10 potential, and that is Sung Kang. Okay, who has not played great, but Sung Kang is 45-1 for a top 10 in this field, and 14-1 for a top 20. Now, right before COVID, he finished 9th at the Arnold Palmer, a stacked field, a somewhat difficult golf course. 2 tournaments before that, finished runner-up at the Genesis, another stacked field. 16th at the Farmers earlier this year, made it into the Tournament of Champions from his win back at the Byron Nelson last year. So he's a PGA Tour winner. I mean, the guy can jump up. I mean, finished 7th at the PGA last year. The guy can hop up and finish top 10. Like, he has that potential. I would rather put my money on him than a Lucas Herbert or a Victor Perez, who's a great European Tour player. But I mean, 45-1 for a top 10 and 14 for a top 20, I like. I also think we can go ahead. I normally don't like to look at first round leader bets before Wednesday, but given the fact that you've only got 78 players, you don't have a big, weather tee time wave advantage, as most players are all going off within the same 2.5 hour window. I do think looking at some first round leader bets are interesting. And again, 78 man field, you talk about, I mean, literally anyone could get hot for one round. And guys like Cam Champ, 2-time PGA Tour winner, big time scorer at 100-1, Keegan Bradley, we know Keegan's a first round guy, right? Like, I mean, if anybody can go low in the first round, it's Keegan Bradley, and then he'll F it up for the remaining 3, but he can go low. He's also 100 to 1. 2 guys who have been playing lately, Bern Wiesberger, Brendan Todd, 90 to 1 at first round leader numbers. I mean, Bern actually had a pretty decent weekend. And just kind of didn't have the best Sunday, but 90 to 1 for him, 90 to 1 for Brendan Todd, who's been playing okay lately. And those guys are accurate players.
I like the 90 to 1 Mackenzie Hughes, who we've seen play really good, have some really good early rounds. So Mackenzie's, a guy that is I think wins on, or we've seen him win at like Sea Island, at the RSM, courses with a lot of water and things like that, where there's a lot of trouble off the tee and all that. I think Mackenzie Hughes is a decent play at first round leader at 90 to 1. So,
the other thing, I mean, we talked about this. I talked about this last week, and I say it all the time. Like, for first round leader bets, I hate betting super short guys, because you're very likely to split it. When you have 2 guys tie or 3 guys tie, or maybe even 4 guys tie for the lead. But I'll tell you what else. Like, that group on DraftKings Sportsbook right now, the group at 80 to 1 is ridiculously good. Eric Van Rooyen, Matt Wallace, Ryan Palmer, Phil, Kiz, Homa, Damon, Byung-Hun An. Like, those are all names that we have seen at the very top of leaderboards recently, long term. Like, all of those guys can pop. You could have a handful of those bets at 80 to 1, and even if I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these guys are tied, and I don't know, like, those are big numbers for a 78-man field. I love some of the first round leader numbers. I might be a little heavy on my first round leader card this week, and like you said, I would prefer take some bankroll away from DFS and lean a little more into first round leader bets. I'm going to dump some on some Sung Kang, finishing T10 or T20, and then the sportsbook outrights. And the Barracuda.
I got some Barracuda plays. You're going to have to go through those, because I don't have the Barracuda plays tonight.
First of all, I've already made these bets. I'm not going to wait, because I think these numbers are going to get shorter. The Barracuda, the alternate field event, is at a brand new venue this year in California. So it's moved to California. It's a Stableford event. So it's going to reward for eagles, birdies. You're going to lose points for bogeys, doubles or worse, pars. You gain okay. But it rewards scoring. You got to score. It's almost like a DraftKings competition. I don't understand why DraftKings doesn't do something with the Barracuda, but it's very much like picking DraftKings players. You need guys who score, who are aggressive. Last year, Colin Morikawa won this event. It was his first win on the PGA Tour. So young guys can win anyway. Now, for this event, I definitely like some of the shorter names, the shorter odds names. I think there's some clear guys leading up to this event. But I mean, Brendan Steele at 25 to 1, a known scorer, has played this event before and done okay. Can definitely take advantage of par fives. He's a California guy, tends to play very, very well on the West Coast in the regular PGA Tour rotation. He's at 25 to 1. That is extremely short to me. 3 guys who I talked about last week, and they all played very well. Sam Burns at 33 to 1, Taylor Gooch at 35 to 1, and Cam Davis at 45 to 1. All 3 played last week. All 3 played very well, made a ton of birdies. Gooch had a chance to win it if he wouldn't have crapped out over the freaking Sunday. Cam Davis stormed up the leaderboard over the weekend, ended up playing very well. All 3 of these guys hit it a long way. They're aggressive. They're young. They make a lot of birdies and eagles. Those are great numbers. Will Gordon, 55 to 1. He does not have full status on the PGA Tour. A win here would do a lot for him, a lot like it did for Colin Morikawa last year. He's a long hitter, very aggressive. That dude was out driving Matt Wolff in the exhibition on Wednesday of last week. Tremendous player, Will Gordon. A guy who hasn't played in the last couple of weeks, but we saw flash a little form prior to, and that's Maverick McNeely at 70 to 1. Maverick can get hot. He's got a great putter, solid tee to green game. 70 to 1's a big number for him. And then 2 more, Robbie Shelton, 100 to 1. Robbie's had 3 good events here lately, played really well on Sunday at just this past week at the 3M Open. You want to ride these guys while they're hot. You know what I mean? Like we gotta, you want guys coming into form that are scoring, that are young, that are aggressive at this event. And then finally, a guy who I was on last week, but he missed the cut. I told you he was either going to miss the cut or finish top 10. Seamus Power, 175 to 1. Seamus needs a good event. He doesn't have great status either. He needs a big event. He's 175 to 1. So I think the Barracuda offers a lot of young guns. Like that's the profile you need. Young, hungry, aggressive scorers in good form to some semblance of form. Doesn't mean they had to have played well the last event, but had they flashed a little bit in the last 3 to 4 weeks, that's what you need heading into the Barracuda. I'd be shocked if any of those names that I just mentioned don't win this golf tournament. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just looking through here real quick. I think you're right on with a lot of these bets, and there's some good value in here for sure. Some really good players that are getting some longer odds. I was looking through here, just hoping to see Will Zalatoris in this event because that guy has just been lighting up the Korn Ferry Tour, but I guess he just didn't get into this one. But anyway. That's a name for the future, by the way, to know.
Oh, yeah. Will is killing it. All right, Pat, let's get to the chunk and run tonight, buddy. It's going to be a fun chunk and run tonight. We're going to have a good time now. The theme for the chunk and run. Now, what we do, the chunk is usually a question that is somewhat golf-related. It could be anything golf-related. Listeners are welcome to submit questions for the chunk and run. You can email them to info@tourjunkies.com or DM us on Twitter or Instagram. We'd love to feature your chunk and run questions, but we thought of these today. And then the run question is literally a question about anything else, but the two tonight are related. Now, here in Georgia, we're a little more cowboy with the old COVID. You know what I mean? We're cowboying it up here.
We're wearing our mask. We're wearing our mask
though. But our kids are about to start school. And let me just tell you, so my kids start school a little earlier than Pat's, but my kids start school a week from today.
Yeah. Mine are not till like mid-August, but anyway.
Yeah. And I am tickled pink about them starting school. I am ready. They've been out of school since the second week of March, and I'm ready for them to go to school. So it got me thinking a little bit about school. So the chunk question tonight is, what PGA Tour players would you say are most like a high school principal, a high school teacher, and a high school coach / PE teacher? And what would be some characteristics? The run question tonight is, what are some memories that stand out from your school days, high school, elementary, middle school, whatever? Now, I think we should start with the latter. I think we should start with the run tonight, some school days memories, Pat. Because I'm very excited about my PGA Tour pros and how they would relate to. I like who I picked out. I think I got it nailed.
I've got a few there. I don't know if I've nailed it, but I've got a few there.
What about your memories? Any good memories? What do you think of when you look back all those decades ago?
It's funny when you get as old as I am, you start to forget a lot of that kind of stuff. So you don't, the memories don't just pop into your head automatically. What you do remember is like how you were, or like what middle school was like, or what elementary school was like, or what high school was like. So like for me, middle school was my favorite time. Like that was when like I was sort of like, you're coming into your own a little bit, but I was sort of I was kind of a ladies' man. I'm sorry. I just was. And so I was all about the ladies. And when I got to middle school, so I went from here's what happened in middle school for me. I started out, and everybody could probably, they're not going to identify with this, but they're going to say, this is exactly what I thought would happen to Pat. So I started out going to a private school when I grew up to 5th grade. Okay. I went from private school to 5th grade to as public as they get in 6th grade. And so the thing I remember about, and when I say as public as they get, I mean as public as they get. I went from private, being around all my, whatever, to being around everybody. And I loved it. It was great. And the thing I loved about it the best was the girls. Like, it was so different because, like, in private school, like, everybody's all reserved and everything like that. But then when I got to public school, like, you could it was a little more relaxed.
It was a whole new world.
It was a whole new world for me. Yeah. And there was like some, there was just some, I was all about the girls in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But the biggest story I remember for me that I think was funny was in high school. And this involves DirecTV, Perry. I didn't drink a whole lot in high school. I know, like, people got crazy and drank, but this just popped into my head. Like, we had this outing where we went to the lake. So DB knows where we have Lake Thurman, Strom Thurmond Lake, which is between South Carolina and Georgia. Well, we called it Clark's Hill, but they forced us to call it Strom Thurmond. He's a great senator, an old long-time senator out of South Carolina, but I still call it Clark's Hill.
Okay. Anyway.
So I was very responsible in those days, and so I decided we were all going to go to the lake, and I was going to be the driver. Okay, I was the driver. So we had all this Zima. Do you remember Zima?
Yes, I do.
So we had all this Zima packed up in this cooler, and we drove to the lake. And my brother, DirecTV, he decided, so he drank a lot of Zima. But I was
Zima
the driver.
Zima was the first alcoholic beverage I had.
Yeah, so
he drank a lot of beverage.
Yeah, he drank a lot of Zima. I did not drink any. And we have to drive back, and we get home, and he is throwing up all over the place. So what did I do? Mom and Dad were out. They were doing something. I don't know. They came back in. So I'm cleaning up after stuff because he's throwing up. And I don't know why this just popped in my head.
This sounds like me after you guys at the Hilton Head trip.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, so like, I'm like cleaning up after him, but then Mom and Dad come home, and they came home, and I'm thinking, oh shit, what do I do? So I just left. But what I did was I left him on the floor, and I like threw a blanket over him in the throw up, and they never knew. I don't know. Maybe they did know. I don't know. Maybe they did know. But I just threw a blanket over him, and then I came back, and they didn't say anything. They were in bed. And I don't know if they were wondering where I was. Like, I don't know, but I just didn't. I left the house. And so it was, I don't know. That was just a crazy night. It was a crazy night. But I got us home safe. And I think about that because it's totally different than me today. Like, I was like the responsible person that night, which is really not like what happens like all the time. Like, you've seen it before.
Dude, everybody in the YouTube chat, Kistler and Moses are talking about, remember how you used to put them Jolly Ranchers in them Zimas? You dropped the Jolly Rancher in there. Oh, anyway, boy.
I think the whole story, that the reason that popped in my head is because I wanted to talk about freaking Zimas. But my younger day, like if you were to say that the run was going to be college days, I could tell you more stories, but I didn't like my high school days, and I didn't like my middle school days as much as I did my college days. So I'm going to go to you now, because I'm sure you've got some better stories than I do.
I don't know. I'll make it quick. I mean, I had a couple of funny moments that kind of came to mind. Number one, when I was in 6th grade, I got a nickname. I thought about nicknames. I got a nickname that stuck with me until I was in 10th grade, thankfully. But in 6th grade, it was the first time I'd ever run a 40. And I played baseball. I was in 6th grade, and we had to run a 40. And at the time, I had the same size foot as I have now, about an 11 and a half. And I was nothing but bones and feet. And I was not very good at picking them up and putting them down. And I ran the 40 time in 7 seconds flat. So and Pat's not paying any attention. This is really annoying. I ran my 40 time in 7 seconds flat.
That's not very good.
Even my coach laughed at me and made fun of me. And everybody laughed at me and made fun of me and called me 7 flat. That was my nickname until I was in 10th grade. I lived with that for 4 years. When I was in 10th grade, we finally ran it again. I begged every year. I'm like, can we run the 40, please, God? In my freshman year, I grew a little bit.
There are like 400-pound offensive linemen.
I know. My freshman year, Well, I told you I was all bone and feet. Like I wore an 11 in 6th grade. So my sophomore year though, or by my freshman year, I was a center fielder on the baseball team, and I wasn't fast, but I was faster. And so finally in the 10th grade, we ran the 40 again, and I ran a whopping 5.2, and that's as fast as I've ever been. I could never break 5, but I was a 5.2. But you know what? I was a really good center fielder because I had quick reaction times. I jumped at the ball quickly. I read it off the bat pretty fast, you know.
I don't think you're under NCR.
I was not a speedster. I was not a speedster, but I was 7 flat for a while. All right. The final thing that's kind of funny that sticks out of me, and like if you're going around the room saying what's something funny that happened to you in high school, I was kicked out of a basketball game in high school, but as a fan, not as a player, which I'm pretty proud of. We were at a big rival game at our home gym. I was in the student section on the front row, giving the ref the absolute business. Every time he ran down to our side of the court, I was in his ear hole. He was making horrible calls. One of my good friends was our senior player, senior guard, shooting guard, incredible player, great shooter. Wasn't getting the calls, BS stuff, and I was giving it to this ref. And he wasn't saying anything to me, never said a word to me. But I mean, I was like in his ear, like a foot away from his ear, not social distancing. And at halftime, our AD gets on the loudspeaker and go, he was from like Minnesota. He go, David Barnett, please come to the press box. David Barnett to the press box. And I was like, I won a pizza. I thought I'd won like a drawing for a Papa John's pizza.
I got a free Papa John's.
I'm like, yeah. And I walked my little 12th grade self over there, and he goes, David, the referee just came over halftime, said you gotta go. I gotta walk you out the gym. You gotta go. He's kicked you out the gym, and you're not allowed in the game anymore. And I'm like, what? Totally embarrassing. Had to be escorted out of the gym. Very embarrassing. Not my proudest moment. But in a way, I look back at it now, and it's kind of funny. All right. Let's get to this. Let's get to the chunk question. If you had a PGA Tour player as a prototypical high school principal, teacher, and PE or / coach, who would they be? Where do you want to start?
Let's start with in the middle there. Let's start with the teacher first.
Okay, I like that.
Because there's a lot of different ways you could go with this. I think.
A lot of different ways. Yeah. So you want to start or me?
Yeah, I'll start. For teacher, I went Ricky Fowler. And here's why. I mean, like when you think about a teacher, now you can go like with the strict teacher, with the, the teacher that you just didn't respect at all or whatever, versus just like the cool teacher that you thought you might like you loved, and you loved being in their class, and they were laid back and they were whatever, and they were cool, and they were like, I don't know. I thought of Ricky Fowler as being just like the guy that, like, if I'm in a classroom and he's teaching my class, like I would love it. Like he's kind of like he's hip, to the new guys, to the new kids, and like I would be, because like if you're if you're a adult or whatever, like you want to be able to relate to your students, and I feel like Ricky would be like that guy that could relate to their students. So that was one reason that I thought that he would be just like the good high school teacher would be Ricky Fowler.
Okay. I picked Kevin Na. Kevin Na is my high school teacher. First of all, he teaches all the maths. That's his specialty. He teaches all the maths. He loves Kenny G.
Why does he teach math?
He's Asian. Why can't he? It's a stereotype. I'm called like it is. Like he's probably.
So you're like,
brilliant.
Okay, you're just like being.
It's an Asian stereotype. He's probably teaching all the maths.
Okay.
We know from his wedding, from Kevin Na's wedding, that he loves Kenny G. In fact, Kenny G played at his wedding. And that's
so like during tests, he's playing Kenny G, like he's throwing up Kenny G during the test.
Yes, he's telling all the students, "Oh, this will help you like clear your a high school teacher loving Kenny G is very stereotypical to me." He gets a substitute a lot. which is kind of a play on Kevin Na's withdrawal issues, whatever. But
yeah, like he's got a regular substitute who doesn't give a shit. Like when the substitute comes in
on speed dial. Yeah. I feel like he's the guy who tries to wear the cool clothes, like you mentioned, Ricky. He tries to wear the cool clothes, but he actually ends up looking more like a nerd. Kind of like not. Sometimes you're like, okay, he's kind of trying to get there, but he can't quite get there, or he's got he's wearing those shirts with the massive logos on the chest that are, it's some kind of character logo or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but it always just looks like he's so close, but he's still so far away. And he's also the teacher that cannot stand the PE coach or the athletic director. There's like this underlying beef. You know what I mean? Like there's this like underlying tension where at any moment he'll kind of take because they know that PE coach is getting away with whatever the F they want to get away with. There's a lot of opposites. Yeah. So they're just not real. They're very opposite. So there's just like this underlying jabs that every now and then you're sitting in class like, is he talking about Coach so-and-so? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's Kevin Na.
Okay.
Let's go to principal. I want to go to principal.
Okay.
My principal is, I think this is a clear decision. If any PGA Tour player were going to be a high school principal, it would be Patrick Reed. There is no one else.
I was totally thinking the same thing, but I didn't go that way.
You didn't go there?
I thought you would. Okay. I thought you would. So
there is nobody on the PGA Tour that would rather be a high school principal than Patrick Reed. He cut his teeth as a hall monitor more than likely throughout all of middle school, high school. His wife is probably the superintendent if Patrick Reed is so she's really calling the shots. You know what I mean? He's got a really shit for brains brother-in-law who's the AD at the school, despite losing records in probably literally every sport. And he tries to, this is my favorite part about Patrick Reed as a high school principal. In your high school, every year, did you have the student faculty basketball game?
I don't remember that. I don't think we did, but maybe we did.
Every year we would have the students versus faculty basketball game in the gym. School would come watch, and it'd be this big production. To me, Patrick Reed is the principal that tries to ball so hard in the student faculty basketball game. Like he shows up, headband, ready, stretching, like ready to go, and he's going hard on like some 11th grade girls that weigh like $106, and he's like backing them down, doing his thing, but acting like this is no big deal. That's Patrick Reed as your high school principal.
See, okay, so there's two routes I think you could take with the high school principal. The first one was going to be the Patrick Reed route or the Bryson DeChambeau route, the guy that knows
was too easy. I couldn't do that one.
Yeah, that knows everything that nobody else knows, and he's smarter than everybody else and whatever. But I went with actually the what I would consider to be the cool high school principal, but the rule follower. So the guy that he's a good guy, but he's just like everything is, he's following the rules and he's very strict on the rules and you can't deviate from that. Okay. That type principle. And that is Webb Simpson to me. That is Webb Simpson. He is the Mr. Rule Follower principle. He's not that exciting. He's not gonna
be vanilla.
He's very vanilla, not a jerk at times. But you know what? I mean, he's not gonna be the guy that you necessarily want to be that's a cool principal. That's the guy he's hanging out with the cool kids, having some fun. So that was my principal. So there you go. Now the PE teacher, I think, is where really things get interesting. And I feel like we're gonna have the same. I think we're gonna have the same guy.
Who's your PE teacher?
We gotta have the same guy.
Who is it?
Freaking Dustin Johnson. Dustin Johnson is the PE teacher.
Yes.
He doesn't give a crap about anything. He's sitting there back there, in these times, and he's if we were eligible, he'd be smoking weed, and he'd be like, "Hey, these kids, listen." A kid comes up and hey, listen, you go run 2 laps around that track, and then what I want you to do is just go get your phone and play a video game or something. I don't know, but I'm gonna be sitting here and I'm gonna be doing my own thing. I'm gonna watch some shit, but you just go do whatever. And like DJ's just not gonna care, and he's not gonna like that's the PE teacher I remember is the one that just does whatever. And DJ fits the mold of the PE teacher like to a T. So I don't know if that was the same one you had, but I feel like
I had DJ. No, I definitely had DJ. I saw him as a little more active, quote unquote, active as a PE teacher. I think for one, DJ as a PE teacher is, and this is one reason why Mr. Nah doesn't like him, doesn't get along with him. Everyone knows that the PE teacher DJ is barely smart enough to teach U.S. history, and he only does it because he has to. They make him teach something.
The PE teacher always teaches history, by the way.
U.S. history it is,
Yeah.
U.S. history it is. And so he does that. But also, this is where I think he's active, okay? He loves to teach girls volleyball, despite zero volleyball experience or acumen, okay? He does play a role on the boys' varsity football team, in which he buys vape cartridges off of the quarterback and bangs 3 or more of the boys' single moms that play on the team. Why would he not take advantage of that? And likely chaperones all the dances, and also bangs any teachers that may be halfway decent, like a 6 or above, and potentially scandalous, like might be banging some senior girls. Anyway, he's just banging a lot of people.
Like if that happened, like if that came out 2 years later, you wouldn't be surprised if that
would not be surprised. Yeah. But likely just doing sex with a lot of people related to the school is what I'm saying.
Yeah, DJ's like
chaperones all the dances voluntarily. You know what I mean? Like, and everybody loves him. You know,
and if God forbid, if there's a damn, away field trip for a weekend, he's definitely chaperoning that.
Oh yeah. He's the driver. He's the lead chaperone.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And all the girls think he's good looking. He's a good looking guy. You know what I mean? Like, so the girls all think he's cute. Coach Johnson, he's cute, right? And he's just taking it to taking full advantage.
Johnson. Like, it just all fits. Like, you really can't go anywhere else but DJ.
There was nowhere else to go other than DJ. Like, I tried to go a little out of the box with Kevin Na, which I think he could. Bryson was a clear choice for principal.
Mickelson popped into my head.
For a principal. He struck me as like a Mr. I was all over Saved by the Bell last week.
Mr. Belding.
He is such a Mr. Belding type. Yeah. He's like always trying to be funny, always trying to be a little bit cool, but he's kind of dorky. But everybody also kind of likes him because he's, at the root of it, he's a nice guy. Like, Mickelson is very Mr. Belding for sure. All right. Good stuff. That was a long episode, but, Pat's back. It went a little lengthy. You'd think with only 78 players, we could get this done in under like an hour and a half, but no, not possible.
Just listen to it at 2.5 times, 1.5 times, whatever.
Probably 1.5, 2.5.
1.5. 2.5 makes us sound like chipmunks. So.
Yeah. All right. I got to go refill, and we got to go do the Tour Junkies After Dark show presented by DraftKings. Let's knock it out. Thanks for listening. May your screens continue to be green. And some of y'all need to rub that off on me. You know what I mean? Like, rub that off on me.
Me too.
Have a great week. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See ya.
Oh!
What the heck? Why are we still live? Why are we still live on YouTube?